Oh, so Champ, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. I said this before and I'll say it again. I have unfortunately gone down the rabbit hole of watching police body cam videos of police dealing with drunk people, and it's the most entertaining shit you'll ever see on the internet. I'm watching one right now, this girl who's literally absolutely plastered, who ran home, said she was at home, but didn't go inside, then ran back to the 7-Eleven, fell on the way there because she's so drunk, then got arrested for trespass because they told her to leave and she just kept talking. And this is out the best part because she's having a full-on meltdown. But anyway, I'm doing good. How you doing?
Good, good. Yeah, it's been an interesting game here for the Wizards. We got that live game going on. They're up 75-74 in Utah. And so that would be a surprising result. I don't expect it to hold on here, but it's nice that they were up even 10 points, I think, at one point. So they put together a pretty decent first half there. But let's talk DC United. In this
Absolutely.
game, they went down, two goals in into the second half there. An important, penalty kick. Got us to within 2-1, and then a beautiful, beautiful pass across the box. So there was two early opportunities at around the 78th minute. One of them, I think, would have been called offsides, but they let the play go on and it was stopped. And the other one, was also a really good defensive stop. But then the sort of third time is a charm. Two guys go out wide. They have to kind of wide to the right, and they have to kind of float to him. And one pass leads to another connecting pass, and he just a great through ball with a ton of spin on it, and that ball spins away from the defenders and the goalie right to our guy who comes through into the box at the very last second and scores a beautiful goal. And to tie it 2-2. And this game was in Portland, and Portland is one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And it was a big result, especially being down 2-0 and an injury. The guy who had the hat trick last week was injured going into this game. And so just a really important, result for them. And but Champ, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, just talking about that goal that you're just talking about from Christian Fletcher, it happened in the 82nd minute, and it was a beautiful, beautiful play to Fletcher, who literally had a wide open net. Hell, I could have made that shot, and I'm nowhere near a soccer player, and I would have made that shot. That's how wide open and easy that goal was for Fletcher to tie the score. But the scoring was mostly in the second half. The first half, there was only one goal. That was from Duran Asprilla in the 18th minute on a beautiful move, a beautiful combination play by Portland to score the goal to start the scoring at 1-0. But then it was a lot of good defense and a lot of good goalkeeper play on both sides in order to keep the score at 1-0 going into the half. There was even, I believe, 4 minutes of extra time, 4 or 5 minutes of extra time in that first half, but still it was only the one goal. Then they got into the second half, and Santiago Moreno on another really good play by their side managed to get their second goal in the 61st minute. But then that's when DC turned it up. Matsus Klitsch managed to get that goal on the penalty kick in the 72nd minute. And then, of course, we talked about it, Christian Fletcher with that beautiful wide open net goal in the 82nd minute. And then the second half had 9 minutes of stoppage time, 9 minutes. So they played another almost 13, 14 minutes of extra soccer only to get to a 2-2 tie and put at least a tie on the scoreboard and a point on the board. But this was definitely a tough one for DC United. But for them to be able to escape on the road, second game of the season on the road in a hostile environment, that place was rocking because both goals that were scored by Portland, that crowd absolutely erupted. So they were definitely in hostile territory. But to walk out of there with still a point with a tie, that shows you that this DC United team is definitely focused and looking to have a much better season than they did last season, but it's still early. It's only the second game. There's still a lot of soccer left to play, but this was definitely a great litmus test for them, say, facing one of the best teams in the Western Conference and managing to leave out of there with a tie.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So some teams are playing actually in the knockout round of the CONCACAF Champions League, which is another league, and so FC Cincinnati is one of those teams. So they're playing in a home and home series with is it Monterey? And so they have to play on Thursday, and then they play us on Sunday. Both of those games are at home for them, but it'll be interesting to see who they start and who they play and how tired those players are when they have to play us because FC Cincinnati is tied with DC United. They both have 4 points in the Eastern Conference. So it'll be interesting to see. DC United did not make that Champions League tournament. And so it'll be interesting to see if that has an impact on next week's game. And because that game will be in Cincinnati, and we will obviously break that one down as well. But I was just happy with having a solid result and a good comeback. Because often if you go down 2-0 in a game in soccer, it's rare to come back from that. It's unlike hockey, which is a little bit different. Just number of shots and opportunities you get in soccer are way less than in hockey to try to come back.
I tend to equate being down 2-0 in a soccer game to being down 21-0 in a football game. It's like almost damn near impossible to come back from, but it can be done. And
Right.
DC United showed it can be done, and it was done. So again, hats off to these guys. And like I said, they played a lot of soccer, not just the full 90 minutes, but an additional 13. So they essentially played 103 minutes of soccer. Like when that final whistle went off, you could see players laying on the pitch just hard breathing. They were absolutely spent playing this game, and plus, it was a pretty chilly game because you could see their breath when they breathe. So it was a pretty chilly game being up there in Portland, but they were able to survive, and they get ready to face FC Cincinnati next, which, like you said, they're involved in another big tournament. So that could play to DC United's advantage, even if they are on their home turf. This could play to a big advantage for DC United. DC United could get another 3 points or even another point if they can just play the way they've been playing the first two games of the season.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I want to welcome in Davey's eating a sandwich in a chat. Davey's a good friend of the podcast, and so definitely go check him out and give him a follow. But we're hoping to have him back on in a couple of weeks to talk March Madness with us. But he was talking about he must have been feeling the good vibes from the Wizards and the OT nail biter versus the Lakers. That was an intense game. I stayed up way too late watching that one. It was over at like 1:15 in the morning for us.
Oh,
Great
I
game.
was passed out sleep by then. Shit.
Great game. LeBron James, all the credit in the world with that, come from behind block that I kind of set the tone for them. And they just, you kind of felt that the Wizards, they could have won it in regulation, but when the Lakers came back and scored in the final minute to tie it, and it would go to overtime, that it was going to be tough, especially in LA. But especially because LeBron was at that point trying for 40,000. He ended that game only 9 points away, and he has since hit that mark. So congratulations to him for being the first player in NBA history to hit the 40K mark. Pretty exciting stuff indeed for that. All right, Champ, any other thoughts on DC United before we switch gears and talk a little wrestling?
Just again, a gritty, gutty performance there by DC United to at least, excuse me, salvage a point. So that's just a quick litmus test of what they are capable of. But again, it's a long season, so we can't really sit and say, okay, with this one, then it's this, that, and the third, because it's a long, long season. They're currently sitting in second in the Eastern Conference after two games behind my Inter Miami with 4 points. Inter Miami is sitting at 2-1 and 7 points. So we'll have to see. Well, 2-0-1, I should say. It's going to be interesting to see what DC can do against Cincinnati and moving forward.
Yeah, and if people want to know, there's a lot of teams that are tied with 4 points right now, but the DC United does have a tiebreaker, just because they count goals for subtracted by goals against, and it's called the differential, goal differential, and that's the tiebreaker, and the first tiebreaker of many tiebreakers. But so right now they are leading that statistical category, so they are quote unquote in second place in the Eastern Conference after 2 weeks, which is very exciting stuff.
Right. They have 5 goals for and 3 against. So that's why they sit there. While most of everybody else is 2-1 and that are at 4 points when Toronto sits with 1 goal for and 0 against.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, I'm gonna catch a Pokemon real quickly. Um,
Who would have thought a brother from Southeast DC would be talking soccer on a podcast?
I know.
Never
I'm
saw this
so
coming.
impressed. I know. I know. But it's a fun sport. It's really interesting. I give them all the credit in the world. Do you have to be on the pitch for 90 minutes like that? There's not very many subs you get. It's not like hockey where people are coming in and coming out. Like these guys have
Yeah.
to have like fitness level like no other. I used to coach a little bit of soccer and manage, the soccer team, for my.
Little known fact, we almost got Junior into soccer. We was going to do it in 2020, but then COVID happened. And
Mm,
that never happened. But he showed genuine interest in playing kid soccer, and we were getting into it and everything like that. But then COVID happened, and then his interest kind of waned away from soccer into being an artist and doing gaming and stuff like that. So. But if he decides he wants to get into soccer, like I'm not going to hold him back because if that's what he wants to play, that's what he wants to play, and then I'll have to be forced to really learn soccer then so that way I can get what he's doing. Um, but it's just shows the range that I have when it comes to sports. Like I don't watch a lot of soccer, but I can still follow it as best I can and talk about it as best I can. But let's talk about what I really know best. So that is being a wrestling nerd.
for sure. Real quickly, I just want to say that Utah has come out on fire here in the second half. No surprise, has a 4 point lead in that. But yeah, let's talk about. There's a big pay-per-view match. It was in AEW, right? This week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was AEW Revolution. It was the fifth AEW Revolution. It took place in Charlotte, North Carolina. The reason why it took place in Charlotte, North Carolina was because it was the final match in the 39-year career of the icon known as Sting. And there was a lot of talk, even going before this event came up, about whether Sting's match, which was a tag team match for the tag titles with Darby Allin against the Young Bucks, was going to be a tornado tag match, was going to be the main event or not. And there was one news report that came out said that it was not going to be the main event, that the AEW World Title match, which was a triple threat, was going to be the main event. But then during the show, the announcers did say that matchup, Sting and Darby versus the Young Bucks, was going to be the main event, and it ended up being the right call as being the main event. Since not only was it an amazing matchup, but Sting and Darby ended up winning, which bucked the tradition of a retiring wrestler going out on his back, meaning they get pinned to lose on their last match, which we've seen already in recent years, i.e., Ric Flair during his last match, which was one of the most ill-advised matches ever in the history of professional wrestling. The man was dehydrated. He passed out twice during the matchup and still managed to get the final fall to win the match for his team in his last match. But yeah, it was Revolution as a whole. The wrestling was absolutely phenomenal, and I cannot wait to talk about it with Sith and on this coming weekend on No Spots because we live stream reacted to it and we enjoyed what we watched. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it sounded like a pretty cool thing. I definitely was lurking at times. If people don't know, I just put the No Spots Pod link in chat, but they do a live watch along, which is always great. I like that you had Sting as your graphic behind you guys. Yeah, for that, I thought that was a nice touch by you. And so I thought that was really cool. I always thought Sting was such an interesting character through the history of wrestling, and so. It's had some iconic moments for sure, and so I thought that was cool that they launched it up and made that the big moment for the pay-per-view. The Wizards have stormed back here, made it 82-81, 9:17 left in the third. Davey did mention that Giannis is not even playing, but the Bucks lead the Clippers in the fourth at the end of the fourth quarter. Yeah, 113-103, so they won that game. So the Clippers are. I definitely think that the champion. It looks like it's going to come out of the East in my mind. It's just the Celtics look so good right now. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously injuries and things happen, but the Bucks are such a dangerous team as well. And wow, what a spin dunk move there. Did that not count? Or maybe that was a replay. Step back three is no good. They're still up by one though. But uh, but yeah, it's Champ. Let people know what you'll be talking about this week on the No Spots podcast.
Well, I did want to talk about some of my three favorite moments
Oh yeah, for
from
sure.
Revolution. My top favorite moment was, of course, Sting's final match. Everything about it was just great. Sting's adult sons actually came out with two of his personas throughout his career. One of his sons dressed up as the old school Sting with the blonde flat top and the colorful face paint and the colorful gear. His other son came out to Wolfpack Sting because Sting was part of the NWO Wolfpack when NWO was a thing with WCW during the Monday Night Wars, when the NWO had like 15 million members, going up against WCW and stuff like that. So I thought that the entrance itself was great. They had a video package that showed before Sting's entrance, showing him watching all of his career highlights and things of that nature. Ric Flair was there ringside for Sting and Darby. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was a guest commentator and got involved physically in the matchup. So did Ric Flair. You had all kind of dignitaries there, like Magnum TA, all that. And then what everything about that was great. My second favorite moment was Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita, an absolute banger of a matchup. The problem that I have with wrestling fans is that they want a match that has build to it to like invest in. But I knew, given both of these guys' reputations, especially working in Japan, I knew this match was going to be a banger. I didn't need a build. I just said I was just of the impression of get them in the ring, let them go. That's all I wanted. You don't need to build it. Konosuke Takeshita had a reputation in Japan. He worked for DDT Pro Wrestling. And of course, Will Ospreay made a name for himself in New Japan Pro Wrestling. They both wrestled the Japanese strong style. So I knew it was going to be a match like that. And it was that and then some. It was amazing. And then I think my third favorite moment was the Continental Crown Championship between Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson, because they told such a great story. The match was really well done. And then afterwards, the stipulation was if Danielson lost, he would have to shake Eddie Kingston's hand. He lost, but then he tried to feign like he wasn't going to shake his hand, but ultimately they did shake hands and show each other respect. Eddie finally gained Bryan Danielson's respect. So those are my three favorite moments when it came to AEW Revolution. But if you want to hear more about my thoughts on Revolution as well as Sif's thoughts, you can check out the No Spots podcast this weekend. Not only that, but New Japan Pro Wrestling is putting on its New Japan Cup tournament beginning Wednesday morning. It's their only tournament that is not a round robin tournament. It's a knockout tournament. I mentioned it last week, but I wanted to remind everybody, it's 28 men in the field. There are four buys. I remember who the four buys are now. It's Sonata, who was last year's winner, Evil, who won in 2020, Hiroki Goto, who was a three-time winner in the mid-2010s, and Zack Sabre Jr., who's a two-time winner, most recently winning it in 2022. They have buys where everybody else are going to be going through first-round matches throughout this next week, and then this upcoming week, and then next week will be the second round that starts, where whoever the four buys will face whoever wins the first round matches and stuff. But it begins at the anniversary event this coming Wednesday morning in Tokyo at the Oda City General Gymnasium. And myself and Sage are going to be beginning our coverage of that tournament beginning Tuesday night on our No Spot True No Spots Pod Twitch channel, where we'll be previewing the upcoming first round matchups and giving our predictions for the upcoming first round matchups. Sith has started to get involved in our predictions as well, and I've been kicking Sage's butt in the predictions in New Japan. He's supposed to be our New Japan expert. So imagine that we have a New Japan expert who can't beat me in predictions. It's funny. But we're going to be talking about all of that and more this coming Tuesday. And then, of course, the podcast will return back on our regularly scheduled day and time on Sunday at 6 p.m. We'll be talking about Revolution. We'll be talking about the New Japan Cup. We'll be talking about all the fallout from Revolution on AEW TV. And we'll be talking about WWE as we're in WrestleMania season. My favorite time of the year, WrestleMania season in WWE. Plus, TNA is working towards their next Impact Plus event, which is Sacrifice, which is going to be headlined by Moose defending the Impact World Championship against Eric Young, which should be a great matchup when that comes around. But a lot to talk about coming up on No Spots Pod. This is one of the best times to be a wrestling fan. I can tell you that much. It's so much to talk about with wrestling, so many different storylines, so many different things to look at. And if that wasn't the case, then my podcast would be dead in the water because I wouldn't have nothing to talk about.
I have a question. Do most people pick one of the different wrestling, programs and stick with it, or do a lot of people follow all of them like you do? I mean, I've always been more of, a WWE purist. I rarely follow anything, outside of that, but I love your show because you give me the insight for that. But do most people have one that they're sort of behind and stick with, or do you think a lot of people watch a bunch of the different, ones out there?
There is a very small portion of the fan base that watches more than one promotion. I think me and Sip actually sit in that little small section because, well, that not only because we're wrestling fans, but because we do a wrestling podcast and we cover so many different promotions. But there are people who stick with just one promotion, but it creates a lot of conflict because they will stick with that one promotion and then we'll see one flaw in the other promotion and use a megaphone to put a focus on it. And that's what's causing, the sort of stigma of being a wrestling fan, because there are people who will only watch one wrestling federation or one wrestling promotion and sing from the rooftops how much that promotion is better than everybody else. Whereas people like myself, people like Sith, people like Donnie Wrestling, people like Sage, people like my boy Dem, people like DJ, Dujanet, where we watch different wrestling promotions because we're wrestling fans. We enjoy wrestling. We don't care where it's coming from. We just care that it's good enough to watch. And so that's why, I enjoy WWE. I reason why I watch WWE. I've been watching WWE since I was a young child because it was really the only really option I had until we got cable. Then I got introduced to WCW, and then I got introduced to ECW when they finally got a national TV deal. And I got introduced to ECW, and then ECW went away, and WCW went away, and then I got introduced to TNA, and then TNA kind of faded in the background, and all I had was WWE. And then AEW came around in 2019, and now I have AEW, I have WWE, I have TNA, and I got introduced to New Japan in 2019, 2020. And so now I have WWE, TNA, AEW, and New Japan, with a little sprinkle of Ring of Honor as well. So it's all because of the fact that I'm such a wrestling nerd and I'm such a wrestling fan. Like, I want to get all the wrestling I can. And then before the pandemic, I got introduced to indie wrestling because I didn't know that there were indie feds even close to where I lived. But I got introduced to independent wrestling, MCW, and places like that, and then Fight Club Pro Wrestling, which was created in the DC metropolitan area. And so again, I'm of the belief that I just want to see good wrestling. I don't care where it's coming from. I just want to see good wrestling, something that's going to entertain me, something that's going to keep me captivated, and something that's going to interest me and make me want to go back and watch it again. That's the bottom line. But there are a lot of fans who will be territorial when it comes to their wrestling fandom. And it's a stigma that's not going away anytime soon. And I don't know if it's ever going to go away, but it's something that we fight through all the time when we do our podcast by making sure we cover as many wrestling promotions as we can because of the fact that we don't want to seem like we're only covering one promotion, we're only favoring one promotion.
No, I love that because I have to say on Facebook you read a lot of stuff and it's mostly my thing is better than yours. There's not a lot of like championing many different ones like you guys do. So I think that is a really cool and unique thing. Corey Kispert just hit the three to give them a 98-91 lead. And of course, they steal the ball and then turn it right back over. So Utah will have the ball. 3:43 left in the third quarter here. They are down 7 to the Wizards as we're trying to get our first win in almost 2 months. So yeah, it's cool. And Davey is chatting here on Twitch talking about the different leagues and how it's really interesting. And I'm happy that you're able to shine a light into them. And I think it'll be interesting to see. One thing that I do enjoy watching is the WWE on Facebook. They have a really good social media channels, and it's kind of fun to watch. They've been showcasing a lot of WrestleMania entrances lately, some of the best ones of all time, Triple H and things like that. And then also, I thought it's been interesting that The Rock, since he's taken a position of being a board member of WWE now, has come back. And the big thing on SmackDown this week was he acknowledged Roman Reigns as his tribal leader, but everyone seems to be convinced, at least in the comment section, and I kind of think so too, that this is all setting up for some sort of big betrayal from The Rock.
It's a
And
trap. Trust
it,
me, it's a trap.
yeah, I think that makes some sense. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And I hope it is a trap, and I hope that that's why Cody wins. I think that would be hilarious if that finally ends. 'Cause I was talking to some people, and they do make a good point. Is you know a lot of people are talking about how he's holding on to this championship because he's trying to break the record for most consecutive days. But the reality is some of the old records for that, I don't think he'd even break. It would take him a long time to do.
Well,
And
I mean, here's the thing, Robbie, is that a lot of the guys who sit at the top with longest reigns as WWE champion wrestle maybe once or twice a month, or here and there, just like Roman is now. I think a lot of the discussion online is that WWE may still have Roman retain at WrestleMania because they want him to pass Hogan on that list, but not Bruno Sammartino, who has the actual longest reign as WWE champion in the championship's history. But they want him to pass Hogan. And I could see why they would want to do that. But at the same time, you've built up the storyline of Cody finishing the story. And I said this on my podcast that if you're going to have Cody finish the story, it has to be at WrestleMania because it will have very little significance if it's done at, like, say, SummerSlam or Survivor Series or even the Royal Rumble. It just would not have the same significance that it would have at, say, WrestleMania, which is the biggest event in all of wrestling. So you would have to do it at WrestleMania. But if they are hell bent on having Roman Reigns with this part-time schedule pass Hulk Hogan on that list of like third all time, because it's still Bob Backlund and then Bruno Sammartino's number one, they would have to have him. Roman would have to lose the belt sometime after September. But I don't know if you do that because you would alienate a very large portion of your fan base, especially when you're getting ready to move over to streaming and stuff like that. The last thing you want to do is do something to cause a large portion of your fan base to say, I'm not watching this shit anymore. Especially when you're about to go over to streaming, which is one of the most unpredictable sources, media platforms around. You don't know what kind of numbers you're going to do on streaming. Whereas with regular TV cable, you know what your numbers are doing. That comes out every week after your shows. And stuff like that. But streaming is very unpredictable. So the last thing you want to do is go to an unpredictable streaming media platform like streaming having your fan base not wanting to watch your product anymore because you didn't give them what they want, which was having Cody finish the story. So it's still up and down. It's still several weeks until WrestleMania. Rock put out a challenge of a tag match on night one, him and Roman against Cody and Seth on night one, which if it does happen, I don't know because I haven't watched Raw tonight. I'm recording it. I'll be watching it in the morning, and then I'll talk about the challenge on my podcast.
Sounds good. So the Wizards have eclipsed the 100-point mark here in their game. Oh, that almost had a putback slam. 101.96 with 2:22 left in the third. I think we're going to end our sports podcast there. But I thank you everyone for tuning in to episode 333. Definitely go check out sportsothp.com. Click the podcast partners button. You can get Champ, which I'll do his command one more time in here. You can also get Gil's podcast, as well, and how did that work? But yeah, the Power Play Point podcast or the No Spots podcast, and they both. Congratulations to Gil for hitting 250 again. That's very exciting for him. And Champ, you only have a couple of weeks left, right, of your season before you have the changeover. Is that right?
Absolutely. WrestleMania, the week of WrestleMania, will be our that podcast before WrestleMania will be our season finale, and then we'll take a week off after WrestleMania. We'll come back from that, and we'll be into season 6 of our podcast. So hard to believe that we are hitting 6 seasons of doing this podcast, which actually started as a once in a blue moon podcast and then turned into a weekly podcast and is now turned into what it is now. But we are still trying to grow from it and we're really trying to expand from it and things like that. But yeah, season 6 is coming in about a month's time. So can't wait for that.
So did you say that you recap WrestleMania? Is it the start of one season or is it the end of the other one? I missed that one.
No, we'll recap WrestleMania as part of the start of the season 6.
Got it, got it. So you have to take a week off before you recap it. Uh,
Absolutely.
so got it. Sounds good. Well, I just did a shout out to True No Spots Pod. And definitely go follow them. And we talked about the podcast partners button already. And yeah, we'll just keep it here for the end of the third. There's about 29 seconds left. Washington is up by 1. Utah has the ball. And we'll see what they're able to do with that. And coming up next on Twitch, we're going to have Josh Turk joining us in just a couple of moments. And yeah, it should be a fun podcast. We're going to do some art. Utah did make the shot. They're up 102 to 101. There's 6 seconds left. They're driving, and they kick it all the way across and kick it. Oh, they didn't get the 3-point shot off in time. He drained it, but it was after the buzzer. So Utah takes a 1-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and we'll be monitoring that on Twitch even while we do our art show. And yeah, so oh, Davey says, "Oh dang, I was just gonna say I had to head out and send Josh my regards. I will do so for sure, and I hope that people stay tuned. Josh should be joining us in just a moment. And he says, Champ, you're the real one. Good to see you again as well. Thank you, Davey, for being a part of it. Look forward to having
Appreciate
you
you,
back
Davey.
on the show in a couple of weeks, and everyone for tuning in on all the different platforms. With that, we are going to end the audio podcast and over on Facebook Live. Again, join us over on twitch.tv/RobbieG_SportsOTHP if you want to see the rest of the art stream, and I will clip this up and I may put some highlights on YouTube or Instagram later on the week. With that, Champ, thank you for joining us. Thanks to Gil and C4 for doing our hockey coverage. Any final thoughts before we let you go?
Just want to say thank you for having me on. I really enjoyed doing these segments. I know we don't have Arun and Tim with us, and I miss those guys. But hopefully, if the Wizards actually start doing something, maybe they can come back and we can actually be a family again. But other than that, arigato gozaimasu, no kigenyo, sayonara.
Thank you for tuning in to episode 333 of Caps, DC United, and Wrestling Talk. Stay tuned. We'll have Josh on in just a second over on our Twitch feed. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys for episode 334, which will have a live Caps game. We'll celebrate Anna's birthday and lots more to talk about. We'll do some more art as well after that one, and we'll have Champ back on to talk more wrestling and soccer. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in. And I think that we are out on Facebook. Let me see. It should be. And yep. All right. Sounds good. Well, thank
It's
you for
still
everything.
showing recording.
Well, the recording will still go because I always keep a backup of the whole thing.
Ah, heard that.
But I think we are off on Facebook. But yeah, Champ, thank you so much. And we can bring in Josh in, and we'll see you next week, Champ.
Absolutely. I do want to come on a little earlier next week to at least hang out with Anna for her birthday.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Definitely join in, and we'll definitely bring you a part of that. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Y'all have fun. What's up, Josh? Have a good one.
All right, sounds good. Well,